Daniel Cross pulled himself through the narrow maintenance shaft, his toolkit clanking against the metal walls. The air filters in Section 7C needed replacing again. Third time this month. He made a mental note to check the supplier records because someone was selling cheap parts to the station. Sweat dripped into his eyes as he worked. The shafts were always hot, always cramped, but Daniel preferred them to the crowded corridors where people asked questions. Down here in the guts of Meridian 7, the only sound were humming pipes and his own breathing. Perfect, he finished the filter replacement and backed out of the shaft, emerging into one of the garden atriums. The station had a few of these scattered around, places where the recycled air got pumped through actual plants. Made everything smell less like metal and recycled sweat. Daniel grabbed his toolkit and stood, stretching his back. That was when he heard it, a high-pitched keening sound like metal scraping against metal, but organic. Wrong. His medic training kicked in before his brain caught up. That was a distress sound. Someone struggling to breathe. Daniel moved toward the noise, rounding a cluster of tall ferns. He stopped short that a child sat curled against the wall, scales flickering between deep purple and sickly gray. Dragon species, he registered automatically. Young one, maybe 8 or 9 in human years. Her claws were digging grooves into the floor, and her breathing came in rapid, shallow gasps. Panic attack. Daniel had seen enough of them that he approached slowly, keeping his movements smooth and visible. The child's eyes tracked him, pupils spiral-shaped and dilated with fear. She made another keening sound and pressed harder against the wall. "Hey," Daniel said quietly, crouching down about 6 feet away. "You're okay. Just breathe." The child's mouth opened, but only a wheeze came out. She was hyperventilating, getting worse. Her scales rippled in distress waves across her small body. Daniel set his toolkit down carefully. No sudden moves. He'd treated enough trauma cases to know that panic fed on panic. Stay calm, move slow, give the kid something to focus on besides the fear. The problem was communication. Most young aliens didn't speak galactic standard well, and this one was too far down to talk anyway. He needed a distraction, something simple and visual. His hand touched the small vial in his toolkit pocket. The bubble solution. He'd kept it there for 3 years, ever since Olivia gave it to him during his last home leave. A stupid thing to carry across the galaxy, but he couldn't throw it away. Daniel pulled out the vial and the small wand attached to the cap. The child's eyes followed the movement, predator instinct briefly cutting through panic. Good. That was good. He dipped the wand and blew gently that a bubble formed, caught the artificial light, and floated between them. Iridescent colors swirled across its surface as it drifted on the atrium's air current. The child's breathing hitched, but differently now. Her spiral pupils locked onto the bubble. One claw reached out, trembling, and popped it. Daniel blew another. Then another. He kept his breathing slow and exaggerated, showing her the rhythm without words. Breathe in. Blow out. Watch the bubble float. Simple cause and effect. Simple and safe. The keening sound faded. The child's breathing started to match his pace. Slow. Slower. Her scales gradually shifted back to a steady deep purple. Daniel blew a stream of bubbles, letting them fill the space between them. The child's claw movements became less frantic, more curious. She popped one, then another, then made a small chirping sound. Not fear. Curiosity. That's it, Daniel said softly. Just bubbles. Nothing scary about bubbles. He held out the vial and wand toward her. She hesitated, then reached out with both small claws. Daniel showed her how to dip and blow, keeping his movements slow and clear. She tried it, blowing too hard at first and getting soap in her mouth. She sputtered, and Daniel almost smiled. The child tried again, gentler this time. A perfect bubble formed and floated up toward the atrium's glass ceiling. She made a pleased chirping sound and blew another. They sat together in silence for several minutes, the child blowing bubbles while her breathing returned to normal. Daniel watched her carefully, ready to intervene if the panic returned, but she seemed steady now. The distraction had worked, his comm unit buzzed. Another repair call, This time in the docking ring. A coolant leak. Priority 1. Daniel stood slowly, not wanting to startle the child. She looked up at him, still holding the bubble wand. "You keep that," he said, pointing at the vial. "It's yours now." The child tilted her head, not understanding his words, but getting the meaning. She clutched the vial to her chest with one claw and made a soft, trilling sound. Not distress this time. Something else. Gratitude. Maybe. Daniel picked up his toolkit. "You'll be okay, kid. Just keep breathing." He left the atrium, already thinking about the coolant leak and how much of a mess it would be. Behind him, he heard the soft pop of bubbles and a child's quiet chirping. He didn't look back, that he never saw the figure standing in the shadows of the upper observation deck. Never noticed the ancient eyes watching his every movement, analyzing every gesture, recording every moment of unexpected kindness. Daniel Cross returned to his work, completely unaware that he just changed everything. Empress Therasarkith had lived for 943 years. She had negotiated treaties that reshaped star systems. She had witnessed the rise and fall of entire civilizations. She had outlived 3 mates and more friends than she cared to count. Nothing in those centuries had prepared her for watching a human maintenance worker blow bubbles at her daughter. Thera stood in the observation deck above the atrium, perfectly still. Her personal guard, Kelvin, stood beside her, equally frozen. Neither had moved since the security drill ended, and they'd tracked Lissa to this location. Thera had been ready to intervene. Every maternal instinct screamed when she saw the human approach her panicking daughter. Humans were new to the galactic community, barely 20 years since first contact. They were considered useful workers, decent fighters but crude, unpredictable, emotional, not the kind of species you wanted near distressed royalty, but something made Thera wait. Perhaps the way the human moved, slow and careful. Perhaps the tone of his voice, soft despite his rough appearance. Perhaps simple curiosity about what would happen next. What happened next was bubbles. Thera watched the entire interaction with growing fascination. The human pulled out what appeared to be a toy, something simple and childish. In Sarkith culture, a distressed member of the royal family would be approached with formal protocols. There were procedures, steps, proper ways to offer comfort that involved ritual and ceremony. This human ignored every single one of those protocols, and it worked. Lissa's panic faded faster than Thera had ever seen. No sedatives, no formal comfort rituals, just floating spheres of soap and water, and a stranger's patient presence. "Should I retrieve the princess?" Kelvin asked quietly, his hand on his weapon. "No," Thera said. "Watch." The human was showing Lissa how to blow bubbles herself now. Her daughter, the heir to the Sarkith Empire, was learning to play with a maintenance worker's toy. The absurdity of it should have been offensive. Instead, it was the most genuine smile Thera had seen on Lissa's face in months. The human's comm unit buzzed. He stood, gave the bubble solution to Lissa, and left. Just like that. No request for acknowledgement. No attempt to introduce himself or gain favor. He simply helped a scared child and moved on with his day. Thera remained in the observation deck long after he disappeared. Lissa sat below, still blowing bubbles, her scales showing the calm, deep purple of contentment. Safe, happy, because of a stranger who didn't know who she was. "Find out everything about him," Thera said finally. Kelvin bowed. "Yes, Empress. Shall I have him detained for questioning?" "No, I want information, not interrogation. His name, background, why he's on this station. But do not approach him. Do not let him know we're watching." "As you command." Kelvin left to carry out his orders. Thera descended to the atrium, where her daughter's nurse finally arrived, flustered and apologetic about losing track of the princess during the drill. Lissa ran to Thera, still clutching the bubble vial. "Mama, look what the human gave me." "I see, little flame." Thera knelt, examining her daughter carefully. No sign of the earlier panic. "Are you well?" "Yes." "You show me bubbles. They float and pop, and you can make them, and Lissa's words tumbled over each other in excitement. "What was his name?" "I don't know. He was nice. He helped me breathe." Thera studied the cheap plastic vial in her daughter's claws. A children's toy, worth maybe a quarter credit. Yet Lissa held it like treasure. "May I see?" Thera asked. Lissa handed it over carefully. Thera examined it, noting the worn label, the slight crack in the cap, the way the plastic was scratched from being carried for a long time. This wasn't something bought for Lissa. This was something personal, something the human had kept with him, and he'd given it away without hesitation. Thera returned the vial to her daughter. "It's a good gift. What do we say when someone helps us?" "Thank you," Lissa said solemnly. "But he left before I could tell him. Perhaps you'll see him again." Thera allowed the nurse to take Lissa back to their quarters. She remained in the atrium, thinking. The bubble incident could be dismissed as a random act of kindness. Humans were known for impulsive emotional responses. It might mean nothing, but Thera hadn't ruled an empire for 3 centuries by dismissing anomalies 0.3 hours later. Kelvin returned with a datapad. Thera reviewed the information in her private chambers. Daniel Cross. Age 34. Former Earth Defense Force medic. 12 years of service, mostly on colony worlds. Decorated for valor, court-martialed twice for insubordination, both charges dropped. Married at 22. 1 daughter. Wife and child killed in the frontier separation crisis. Took hardship discharge. Spent the last 3 years working maintenance on various stations in O criminal record. No thits. No political affiliations. No connections to any power structures. Just a man who fixed machines and kept to himself. The file included security footage from the past month. Thera watched it all. Daniel's routines were simple and repetitive. Work 3rd shift. Eat alone. Sleep. Repeat. But scattered through the footage were small moments. Helping a dock worker with heavy cargo. Fixing a drop translator for free. Talking down a drunk who was causing trouble instead of calling security. Treating a burn victim while waiting for medical teams. Small things. Easy to miss. But they formed a pattern. Daniel Cross helped people. Not for recognition or reward. He just did it. Thera thought about her own empire built on carefully calculated alliances and rigid hierarchies. Every action had a purpose. Every kindness served a goal. The concept of helping someone simply because they needed help was almost alien to her political experience. Yet here was a human who lived it naturally. "What do you make of him?" Thera asked Kelvin. "He's nobody, Empress. A broken soldier working a dead-end job." "Nobody," Thera repeated. "Yet my daughter trusts him more than her own guards." Kelvin shifted uncomfortably. The guards failed to maintain proper oversight during the drill. The guards followed protocol perfectly. But protocols don't comfort frightened children. Bublis do. Thera made a decision. "I want to meet him, but not as Empress. Arrange an accidental encounter. Make it look natural. Empress, is that wise? We know nothing of his true intentions. That's precisely why I want to meet him. I've spent 900 years reading people who have intentions. I want to understand someone who simply acts." Kelvin bowed, though his expression showed doubt. "As you wish." Thera looked at the security footage frozen on her screen. Daniel Cross, unremarkable human, unknowingly teaching an empress that maybe the galaxy's most powerful empires had forgotten something fundamental about kindness. The malfunction alarm woke Daniel from restless sleep. He rolled out of his narrow bunk and checked his coolant leak in Sector 12, kitchen facilities. They needed it fixed before breakfast shift started in 3 hours. He pulled on his work clothes and grabbed his toolkit. Another day, another leak. The station was old, constantly breaking down in small ways. Daniel didn't mind. Broken things made sense. You found the problem, you fixed it, you moved on. He took the service elevator down to Sector 12, yawning. Sleep never came easy anymore. Too many nightmares, too many memories. Working 3rd shift meant less interaction with people, which helped, but it also meant living on a backward schedule that his body never quite accepted. The kitchen leak was worse than reported. Coolant had pooled across half the floor, and the temperature was already rising. Daniel got to work, shutting off the main line and tracing the source. A corroded joint, cheap replacement part. Same problem as the air filters. He was elbow deep in the repair when someone screamed. Daniel spun around. One of the kitchen workers, a young Pelian, had slipped in the coolant. The kid's arm was pressed against an exposed heating element, skin blistering. Training took over. Daniel crossed the kitchen in 3 strides, pulled the worker away from the heat, and lowered him to the floor. Second-degree burns at minimum, possibly third. The Pelian was crying, clutching his arm. "Let me see," Daniel said firmly, the same voice he'd used on 100 battlefields. "Let me see it." The worker reluctantly moved his hand. The burn was bad, angry red with white patches. Daniel pulled his emergency kit from his toolkit, the one he'd carried since his military days. Burn gel, sterile wrap, pain medication. "This is going to hurt," Daniel warned, then applied the gel without waiting for permission. The worker hissed in pain, but held still. Daniel worked quickly and efficiently. Clean the wound, apply medication, wrap it properly, check for shock symptoms. His hands moved through the familiar routine while his mind cataloged details. Breathing steady. Pupils normal. No signs of allergic reaction to the gel. "Good. You need to get to medical," Daniel said, helping the worker to his feet. "This is stabilized, but they need to check for nerve damage." "I can't afford medical bills," the Pelian said weakly. "Tell them it's a workplace injury. Station covers it." Daniel guided him to a chair. "Stay here. I'll call it in." He finished the coolant leak repair while waiting for the medical team. They arrived 10 minutes later, checked the worker, and took him away. One of them nodded at Daniel's field dressing with professional respect. Daniel returned to his repair. The kitchen supervisor arrived, saw the fixed leak, and thanked him. Daniel just nodded and left. His shift report would note the injury and response time. That was enough. What Daniel didn't know was that Empress Thera had watched the entire incident through the kitchen security feed. She sat in her quarters, reviewing days of footage. Kelvin had been thorough. Every public moment of Daniel's life on the station was documented. Thera watched him work, eat, sleep, and exist in his quiet, isolated way, but scattered through the mundane routine were these moments on his second day of observation. Daniel found a translator earpiece in a corridor. Instead of keeping it or selling it, he spent his break fixing the cracked casing and left it at the station's lost and found. Translators were worth 50 credits. He gave it away on the 3rd day. A drunk Krillian blocked a corridor, angry and belligerent. Security was called, but Daniel arrived first. He talked to the drunk in a low, calm voice, convinced him to go home, helped him to a transit pod, never raised his voice, never called for backup. On the 4th day came the kitchen burn. Medical response praised his field treatment. Probably saved the kid's hand. Small things. But they added up to something larger. Thera paused the footage and leaned back. Kelvin stood nearby, waiting for orders. He was a combat medic, Thera said. 12 years of treating injuries under fire. Yet he's fixing air filters and coolant leaks. Humans often struggle to adapt after military service, Kelvin offered. He's not struggling. He's hiding. Thera stood, pacing. Every action is competent, professional, but impersonal. He helps people, then disappears before they can thank him. Perhaps he simply prefers solitude. Thera pulled up Daniel's service record again, focusing on the personal details. Wife Rebecca, killed in a transport strike. Daughter Olivia, age 7, killed in the same attack. Daniel was off-world during the incident, deployed on a medical frigate, saving strangers while his family died. The bubble solution made sense now. A toy from his daughter, kept in his toolkit for 3 years. A small piece of grief carried through the galaxy. He's not hiding from people, Thera said quietly. He's hiding from connection. Every time he helps someone and leaves before they respond, he's maintaining distance. Why approach Lissa then? Instinct. He saw a child in distress, and his training overrode his isolation. Thera looked at the frozen image of Daniel working in the kitchen, focused and alone. He can't help helping. It's who he is. But he won't let anyone get close enough to help him back. She made her decision. Arrange the encounter. Tomorrow, during his rounds. Make it look accidental. Kelvin bowed. The disguise is prepared. You're certain about this approach? I need to understand him beyond surveillance footage. I need to see if the kindness is genuine or just trained behavior. The next evening, Thera stood in a public corridor wearing simple traveler's clothes. She'd shifted to a slightly smaller form, less imposing. Her scales were muted, her bearing ordinary. Just another dragon passing through the station. She positioned herself at a public terminal, pretending to struggle with the interface. Through her peripheral vision, she watched Daniel approach, toolkit in hand, heading for a scheduled repair that he slowed when he saw her. She could feel his hesitation, the internal debate. His default was to avoid interaction, but he stopped. Need help? Daniel asked quietly. Thera turned, plain confused. This interface is very complicated. I'm trying to find food services. Language settings wrong, Daniel said, reaching past her to adjust the controls. Try now. The screen shifted to Draconic script. Thera pretended relief. Thank you. I'm new to this station. Everything is overwhelming. Daniel nodded, already starting to leave. Food court's on level 3. Can't miss it. Wait, Thera said. Could you show me? I keep getting lost. She watched his face. The instinct to help warred with the instinct to isolate. For a long moment, she thought he'd refuse. Then he sighed. Yeah, okay. It's not far. They walked together through the station corridors, and Thera began to understand what surveillance footage couldn't show her. The workers' cafeteria was half empty during off-peak hours. Daniel led the disguised Empress to a quiet corner table, then went to get food. Thera watched him interact with the server. Polite but brief. No wasted words that he returned with 2 trays of simple food. Wasn't sure what you'd like. This is pretty standard. Thank you. Thera picked at the food carefully. You're very kind. Daniel shrugged. Just showing you the cafeteria? No big deal. They ate in silence for a moment. Thera studied him openly now. Up close, she could see the exhaustion in his face, the careful way he held himself. Like someone carrying weight nobody else could see. What do you do here? She asked. On the station. Maintenance. 3rd shift. Fix things that break. Do you enjoy it? Another shrug. It's steady work. Machines make sense. You find a problem, fix it, move on. Unlike people. Daniel paused, fork halfway to his mouth. He set it down. People are complicated. Yes, Thera agreed. They are. Is that why you work with machines? Partially. He didn't elaborate. Thera tried a different approach. Have you always lived on stations? No. Grew up on Earth. Joined the military young. Served on colony worlds mostly. This is recent. Do you miss Earth? Sometimes. His expression closed off slightly. Not going back, though. Thera noted the finality in his tone. Why stations, then? Neutral territory. Nobody asks too many questions. He looked at her directly. Usually, Thera smiled slightly. I apologize. I talk too much when I'm nervous. New places make me anxious. Nothing to apologize for. Daniel's voice softened. Station can be overwhelming at first. Lots of species, lots of customs. Takes time to learn. Have you learned them? The customs. Enough to be respectful. That's all that matters. Thera saw an opening. I saw something strange yesterday. A human child with bubbles. Is that a common human custom? Daniel's face changed. Not much, just a slight softening around the eyes. Yeah, simple toy. Kids love them. Cheap, harmless, entertaining. Just for children. Mostly. He was quiet a moment. Sometimes adults need simple things too. You sound like you understand that personally. Daniel met her eyes, and for a moment, Thera saw past the careful walls. My daughter loved bubbles. Used to blow them in our quarters until her mother complained about soap everywhere. Past tense. Thera kept her voice gentle. Where is she now? Gone. Both of them. Transport attack. 3 years ago. I was deployed. Couldn't be there. I am sorry. Yeah. Daniel looked down at his food. Me too. The silence stretched, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Thera recognized shared grief when she felt it. I've lost people too. Many people. The pain doesn't fade, does it? It just becomes familiar. Daniel looked up, studying her face. Really seeing her for the first time? No, it doesn't fade. You just learn to carry it. Is that why you help people? To carry the weight? Maybe. Or maybe I just can't stop. Saw too much suffering in the war. If I can fix something, prevent pain, I do it. Doesn't bring anyone back, but... He trailed off. But it matters anyway. Small things. That's all any of us can do. Small things that might help someone get through the day. Thera felt something shift in her understanding. This wasn't trained behavior or cultural programming. This was someone who'd been broken and chose to keep helping anyway, not because it would heal him, but because not helping was worse. What if helping causes you trouble? She asked. Daniel almost smiled. Then I deal with trouble. A scared kid is a scared kid. Someone bleeding is someone bleeding. Doesn't matter who they are or what problems it causes me. That's very human of you. Is it? I figured most species would do the same. In my experience, Thera said carefully, most beings calculate cost before acting. Measure risk against reward. That's just fear dressed up as wisdom. Daniel picked up his fork again. Fear keeps you alive, but it doesn't make life worth living. What does make it worth living? For you. He thought about that. Honestly, I'm still figuring that out. Lost my answer 3 years ago. Now I just try to get through each day without breaking anything I can't fix. And the small things? The helping. Only thing that feels real anymore. Everything else is just existing. But when I fix something, help someone, there's a moment where it matters. Brief but real. Thera understood then. Daniel wasn't hiding from connection. He was maintaining it in the only way he could handle. Brief moments of genuine care, then distance before it could hurt him. You must have been a good medic, she said. I was adequate. Kept people alive more often than not. That's not what I meant. I meant you must have cared about your patients. Caring was the job. Still is, I guess. Just different now. Daniel's comm buzzed. He checked it and sighed. Emergency repair. Docking ring. I need to go. He stood, and Thera did too. Thank you for showing me the cafeteria. And for the conversation. No problem. Hope you find what you're looking for on the station. Thera watched him leave, his toolkit bouncing against his leg as he walked. She sat back down, thinking. Her guards materialized from various positions around the cafeteria. Kelvin approached. Well, he's exactly what he appears to be, Thera said quietly. No hiding agenda. No calculations. Just someone trying to survive grief by being useful. That makes him dangerous, Empress. Unpredictable. No, it makes him genuine. And that's rarer than any metal in this galaxy. She stood. Arrange a formal meeting. Tomorrow. You're revealing yourself. I want to see what happens when he realizes who I am. Whether the authenticity survives the revelation. And if it doesn't, Thera thought about Daniel's words. Small things matter. Brief moments that feel real. Then I'll know that even humans have limits to their idealism. But I don't think they do. I think that's what makes them extraordinary. She left the cafeteria, already planning her next move. Behind her, the workers whispered about the strange dragon who'd eaten in their section. None of them recognized their empress, just as Daniel hadn't. And that made everything he'd said true. Daniel stared at his datapad for the third time, certain he was reading it wrong. The message was still there, formal and official. Your presence is requested by Empress Thera Sarkith. Diplomatic Suite 7, 1,400 hours today. Attendance is mandatory. The Empress, the dragon who ruled half the known galaxy, wanted to see him. Daniel sat on his bunk, trying to make sense of it. He'd never dealt with anyone important. Maintenance workers didn't get summoned by royalty, unless he'd broken some law he didn't know about, or violated some protocol. The woman from yesterday. Thera. That was a common enough name, wasn't it? Couldn't be the same person, except the message was signed by her personal guard. Kelvin. Daniel's stomach dropped. He'd eaten lunch with the Empress. Complained about people being complicated. Told her his life story like she was just another traveler. He was definitely in trouble. A T-1,345 hours, station security arrived at his quarters. 2 guards, both professional and neutral. Daniel Cross? Please come with us. They escorted him through parts of the station he'd never seen. The upper levels where diplomats and traders lived. Everything was clean, expensive, maintained by people who actually cared. Not like the workers' sections where Daniel spent his time. They stopped at a large door marked with Sarkith symbols. One guard pressed the entry panel. Daniel Cross, as requested. The door opened. The room beyond was overwhelming. High ceilings, precious metals everywhere, artifacts that probably cost more than Daniel would earn in his lifetime. And in the center, sitting on what was almost a throne, was Thera, except she wasn't small anymore. She'd returned to her full size, scales gleaming with authority, wings folded against her back. Royal guards flanked her, including some he recognized from security footage. They all looked at him with varying degrees of suspicion. This was the Empress. And he'd told her machines made more sense than people. Daniel stood at attention, old military habits taking over. Your Majesty. Thera studied him in silence. The moment stretched. Finally, she spoke. Do you know why you're here? No, ma'am. But I apologize for any offense I've caused. What offense would that be? Daniel's mind raced. I spoke casually to you yesterday, without knowing your identity. That was inappropriate. Was it? Thera leaned forward slightly. What should you have done differently? I should have recognized you. Should have shown proper respect. And if you had recognized me, would you still have shown me to the cafeteria? Daniel hesitated. Honesty seemed like the only option. I like to think so, but honestly, I probably would have made an excuse and left. Wouldn't have wanted to mess up protocol. One of the guards made a disapproving sound. Thera silenced him with a gesture. At least you're honest. Kelvin stepped forward with a datapad. Daniel Cross, you are formally charged with unauthorized contact with the royal heir, Princess Lissa. You approached her without proper clearance, violated security protocols, and distributed unapproved materials to a member of the imperial family. The atrium, the bubbles. Daniel finally understood. I was helping a scared kid. The princess is not a kid, the guard snapped. She is. Thera raised one claw. Let him finish. Daniel looked at the Empress directly. Your daughter was having a panic attack. I helped her. That's all. If you had known her identity, would you still have helped? The same question again. Daniel thought about it honestly. I like to think so, but I might have hesitated. Worried about doing it wrong. Like now, why bubbles? Simple distraction technique. Visual, harmless, gives the patient something to focus on besides panic. Standard trauma response. The vial you gave her was yours. It wasn't a question. Yes, my daughter's originally, but your daughter needed it more. The guards shifted uncomfortably. Giving royalty-used items was apparently a major offense. Daniel didn't care. He'd do it again. Thera stood, descended from her seat, and approached him. Daniel forced himself not to step back. She was massive up close, powerful, and ancient. She could probably kill him without effort. I watched the entire interaction, she said quietly. I was there in the observation deck. Daniel's eyes widened. Then why all this? If you saw everything, I wasn't trying to. I needed to understand if that moment was genuine or calculated. So I've spent the last week observing you. Observing me? Thera gestured. A screen activated, showing security footage. Daniel watched himself help the dock worker. Fix the translator. Talk down the drunk. Treat the burn victim. Day after day of small moments he'd barely remembered. You help people, Thera said. Consistently. Without recognition or reward. Even when it costs you time and effort. That's not special. That's just being decent. In my experience, decent is revolutionary. Thera studied his face. I have a proposition. My daughter asks about you constantly. She wants to see you again. I can stay away if that's protocol. The opposite. I'm offering you a position. Cultural liaison. You would spend time with Lissa, teach her about humans, about your customs. Daniel stared. I'm a maintenance worker. I'm not qualified to teach anyone, especially royalty. You're qualified to be yourself. That's what she needs. There are thousands of humans more educated, more diplomatic, but you didn't know who she was and helped anyway. That authenticity cannot be trained. Thera's expression softened slightly. I'm not asking you to be a diplomat. I'm asking you to be the same person you were in that atrium. Someone who treats a scared child like a person, not a political symbol. Daniel's mind spun. Why me? Because in 900 years, I've never seen someone so consistently choose kindness without agenda. Because my daughter trusts you, and she has excellent instincts. Because you show humanity's greatest strength. You care, even when it hurts. I need time to think. You have one day. Report your decision tomorrow. The guards escorted Daniel out. He walked through the station in a daze, returning to his small quarters. Everything he'd built here was simple, isolated, safe. This offer threatened all of that. But he kept seeing Lissa's face when the panic faded. Her small chirp of happiness. The way she'd clutched the bubble vial like treasure that he'd told Thera that small things mattered. Time to decide if he actually believed it. Daniel didn't sleep. He sat in his quarters, staring at the single photo he kept. Rebecca and Olivia, smiling on a beach somewhere on Earth. Taken 6 years ago. A lifetime ago that he'd built his life around avoiding this exact situation. No connections, no complications, no chances to fail people again. Just work, solitude, and the occasional small kindness that cost him nothing emotionally. Thera's offer shattered that careful distance. T0 800 hours. He made his decision. He cleaned up, put on his least-stained work shirt, and headed to the diplomatic suite. The guards recognized him this time, waved him through without questions. Thera was alone except for Kelvin. She stood by a viewport, watching ships dock and depart. She turned when Daniel entered. "I'll do it," he said, "but I have conditions." Thera's expression showed amusement. "You negotiate with an empress? You asked me to be myself. So I am." "Fair enough. What are your conditions?" "I keep my maintenance job. I need the work, the normalcy. Meetings with Lissa happen in normal places, not formal chambers. And if I think I'm causing harm, I can walk away. No questions." Thera considered. "Acceptable. But I have conditions too." "Okay. You attend certain diplomatic functions. I want others to see you, to understand what you represent. You be honest about human culture, even when it contradicts our customs. And you teach Lissa not just about humans, but about kindness itself." Daniel frowned. "Can't teach kindness. Either you have it or you don't. You teach it every time you help someone. I'm asking you to do it consciously." He thought about that. "All right, I'll try. Then we have an agreement." That afternoon, Daniel met Lissa in one of the station's public gardens. Not the atrium where they'd first encountered each other, but a similar space with plants and recycled air. Thera watched from a distance with her advisors. They looked horrified when Daniel pulled out a set of basic tools and started teaching Lissa how to tighten a loose panel. "The princess cannot perform manual labor," one advisor hissed. "The princess can learn that work has dignity." Thera replied calmly that Lissa's claws were too large for the small screws, but she tried anyway, her tongue sticking out in concentration. Daniel showed her how to brace the tool, how to feel when the screw was tight enough. "Why do we fix things?" Lissa asked in careful galactic standard. "Because broken things don't work. And when things don't work, people suffer. But you're not royalty. Why do you care if people suffer?" Daniel paused. "Doesn't matter if I'm royalty or not. Pain is pain. If I can stop it, I should. Even for strangers. Especially for strangers. They need help more than friends do." Lissa thought about this while tightening another screw. "Mama says you're very human. I suppose I am. What makes humans special?" Daniel almost laughed. "We're not special. We're new to space, still figuring things out. We make mistakes constantly. But you helped me. You didn't have to." "Yes, I did." "You were scared. What kind of person sees fear and walks away?" Lissa looked up at him. "Most people. Mama says so." That hit harder than Daniel expected. Then most people are wrong. They worked together until the panel was secure. Lissa showed him her bubble technique, which had improved significantly. Daniel blew some too, and they filled the garden with iridescent spheres. Other species stopped to watch. A human and a dragon princess, playing together like it was the most normal thing in the galaxy. Word spread fast. Over the following weeks, Daniel's life transformed in ways he hadn't anticipated. He still worked maintenance, but now he spent afternoons with Lissa. She taught him dragon history through children's songs. He taught her human games and practical skills. Thera insisted he attend a diplomatic dinner. Daniel went, uncomfortable in borrowed formal clothes. Ambassadors didn't know how to categorize him. Was he a servant? An advisor? A curiosity? A Krellian ambassador made a dismissive comment about humans being useful primitives. Daniel didn't respond, but Lissa did. "Daniel is smart," she said clearly. "He fixes things. He helps people. What do you fix?" The room went silent. Every eye turned to Thera, waiting for her to rebuke the princess for disrespecting an ambassador. Instead, Thera smiled. My daughter asks a fair question. We often confuse complexity with wisdom, technology with intelligence. This human has taught me more about genuine leadership in 3 weeks than some treaties have taught in decades. The political implications rippled through the room like a shockwave. Later, Thera found Daniel on an observation deck, staring at Earth's distant light. "Regretting your decision?" she asked. "Just wondering what I'm doing here. I fix pipes. Now I'm at diplomatic dinners, changing political dynamics." "You're doing exactly what I asked. Being yourself." Daniel turned to face her. "You realize what you're starting? Other species are going to look at this and draw conclusions about humanity. Good. Let them conclude that humans value people over protocol. That connection matters more than hierarchy. That kindness is strength, not weakness. Most humans aren't like me, aren't they? I've studied your species. You're all bizarrely willing to help strangers. You bond across species lines. You treat others as equals even when you're outmatched. It's not training. It's cultural." Daniel thought about his military service, the volunteers, the medics who ran toward danger to help people they'd never met. "Maybe you're right. Small things, Daniel. You told me small things matter. You've proven it." Months passed in quiet transformation. Lissa grew more confident, more empathetic. She learned to see people as individuals, not categories. She taught other dragon children, who taught others. Thera established a formal cultural exchange program, using Daniel as the model. Humans and dragons began interacting casually, building connections through small shared moments instead of grand treaties that IT wasn't perfect. There were misunderstandings, conflicts, setbacks. But the foundation shifted from rigid protocol to genuine relationship. Daniel still worked maintenance, still fixed broken things. But now he also spent time with a dragon princess who called him her friend, taught other children about bubbles and kindness, and somehow became a bridge between species. One afternoon in the garden, Lissa and several other children played while Daniel supervised. Human kids, Centauran kids, Pelian kids, all blowing bubbles together. Thera watched from her usual vantage point. Kelvin stood beside her. "Do you think he knows what he's accomplished?" Kelvin asked. "No," Thera said. "And that's why it worked." "Will you tell him?" "He wouldn't want to know. He'd just say he was doing his job." The garden filled with laughter and iridescent spheres. Children from a dozen species, playing together like it was simple, because one human maintenance worker had shown them it could be. Thera thought about her long life, her endless treaties and negotiations. None had changed her perspective like watching Daniel Cross blow bubbles at a scared child. The galaxy didn't shift on grand gestures alone. Sometimes it shifted because someone saw fear and chose to help. Because someone believed small things mattered. Because someone proved that kindness needed no agenda to be powerful. In the garden below, Daniel taught a Pelian child how to make bigger bubbles. The child succeeded and chirped with delight. Daniel smiled, a genuine expression Thera had rarely seen in their early meetings. He was healing too, she realized. Slowly, through helping others, he was learning to forgive himself for the family he couldn't save. Bubbles caught the station's light, casting rainbow reflections across the garden. Simple spheres of soap and water, made profound by the hands that created them and the connections they fostered. Thera understood finally what made humans extraordinary. Not their technology or their strength, but their stubborn insistence that everyone mattered. That every scared child deserved comfort. That small kindnesses built bigger worlds. One human veteran with a vial of bubble solution had taught an empire that the strongest foundations were built not on power or protocol, but on moments of simple, genuine care.